Awesome. Cool. So in the meantime, we'll get started and we'll see who else trickles in, but we will do intros. Awesome. Cue fade music. Awesome. So welcome. For anyone that's new, welcome to QTBIPOC Design. We are an organization that helps to empower LGBTQ+ designers and designers to be of color with free education, mentorship, and networking opportunities. And right now we host monthly courses, monthly masterclasses where you get together, hang out, learn different topics in design, equity, inclusivity, and also we have a bunch of stuff planned for 2021. Oh yeah, Happy New Year for everyone too. Happy 2021, and we're super excited with everything that we have in store for this year, and we have so many things, and we'll give a little bit of update to what we're doing later this year. Kenny, if you take a look, you might be getting a notification of people who show up on the wait list. If you could just admit people. Do you have that option?
No, I don't have that on mine. I don't know if I got the host permission.
Okay, let me try it again. How about now?
Yes.
Okay, sweet. Okay, I'm gonna go into present mode. And then I'm gonna close out of it in a sec. But would love to start off our event as we normally do with quick introductions. And so what we do here as a group is we share our first name, our gender pronouns, he, she, they, where you're calling in from. And what we also like to do is we give a nod to the unceded tribal territories of lands we inhabit. And you could check it out at native-lands.ca to check out what region you're calling in from. And if you can't pronounce it, it's okay, just try your best. And also, number 3, what are you celebrating today? Did anything fun happen over the holidays, or did anything amazing happen in the upcoming new year? There's so many crazy things happening, but is there anything that's happening in your life that you're smiling about? And so I'm going to close out of this real quick, and then we can go into sharing. Let me post the questions in case we forgot. Cool. And then Kenny, if you want to pause the recording too. So with that, first things first, wanted to first ask just, I wonder if I could do, I cannot run the, Kenny, you might have to run the surveys for me. Do you see it?
Oh, yes.
Okay, there should be a first one that's to see who attended the last session. There we go. Okay. Poll number 1, just to get a sense of who attended and just some context for us to be able to create this event better. Let us know if you've attended the last session. Awesome. Yep. The event will be recorded and shared. Yeah, it looks like the recording's on, and you can access this later on too. Okay. Yeah, of course. Do the results get shared?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Do you want me to pass the host to you for now, or?
You could just read it. What is it?
Okay. Yeah, we have a 37% yes and 63% no. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Great context. And then just the last survey for today. This one is just to let us understand a little bit better how everyone is very familiar with the tools for Figma. So components, auto layouts, variants, these are going to be the things that we're going to talk about today. And so just wanted to understand where everyone is at. There's 4 different options. Use it all the time, use it a few times, know it, but haven't really used it, or what the heck are you talking about? Hopefully Steven is not. What's that? What is that? Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like components are fairly popular. Like 41% of us have used it a few times, and it's about split even the other 3. And then auto layouts and variants are a little bit less popular, or less. We have a little bit less experience on, so should be cool stuff to learn today.
Awesome. Okay, good context. Thanks, Kenny.
Yeah.
So real quick, before we dive into it, this is going to be a little bit of a weird tutorial, and you'll totally get why at the end. But the first part is just talking about like, what is this and why do we use it, right? So I'm going to move everyone's face just for now. I know it's animated, right? Cray cray. So first of all, let's just talk about what is it. It seems like a lot of people are familiar with what components are. Components are essentially, right, we're using Figma to create the designs of the page, and components are, in a basic nutshell, just reusable elements of the page. If it's an icon, if it's a button, if it's something that we either reuse on the page multiple times or we use it on other pages multiple times. And the reason why we create it is so that we edit it once and it touches and edits everything. And what's really cool about components is we can modify some of the specific elements with it without having to adjust every single one of them, but it still inherits some of the properties. So for anyone new, let's look at this add to cart button, right? As we're designing it, if we create it as a component and we have it on multiple pages, and Amazon is just like a whole website of like crazy components. We can change a copy on one page. It could be, instead of add to cart, it could be, add to basket. Let's just say we want to say that on a different page, right? We can do that and still have it inherit the yellow, the icon, stuff like that. The more advanced components could be similar to this tile, this product tile we have with the Welch's fruit snacks. What we can even do is the text is a part of the component, but we can even make the images, the stars, the prime icon there as components too. So in the future, let's say we updated the prime icon, it will update in all these different components that we've used this component in. So just imagine just like everything can have all these dependencies, and it's a big beast that, updates itself. The second part are variants. So this is a new feature that's a part of Figma. And the simplest way to explain this is if we have a component that we can replace it with something that is alike or similar. So where people usually use variants for is to swap out buttons, right? We know, this spot is going to be a button, but we want to swap it with one that is gray, one without an image, one with an image, one inverted. And so variants allows us to have more flexibility over the components, but also standardize some of these variations. So remember we talked about components. You could change the text, you could change the color. Yes. Did someone say something? No? I heard like a wailing. Yeah, you feel free to wail too if it's like, I wail sometimes at the computer and I'm like, this is like so much. Yeah, so just think of variants as components in different flavors that you want to control, right? So let's say I have a gray button that I want to create and I want to use the same gray all the time. We'll create it as a variant. So instead of having to just swap for the gray, and then now I get all these different grays, I have a setting, like a style that I can apply on top or just swap it out completely. Yeah. And And then the last one, and then so the other example is, right, instead of buttons, it could be, even just like form field and drop down. Just think of it as, what can I replace that is similar to it? And then the last one that we're going to go over is the auto layout feature. So imagine, you have a website and you just have all these repeating elements. Usually in e-commerce, we have these product tiles that repeat, not just horizontally, but also vertically. But essentially, these are just, first, it's a repeating module. We have 1 through 100. Why we put it in this auto layout mode is so that, one, we can modify the margins and control it all in one go. For example, the spacing between, let's say, the carrots and the green onions. This is like my Amazon search history. Um, so between the spacing of these like vegetables and the Boca burger, I can control in one go all the different spaces around it. But also what auto layout is really cool is we can use it to control things that aren't the same. And why we do that is, just imagine we have, let's go back to the Welch's fruit snack, right? We can set up an auto layout feature that tiles the snack, then the name, the Welch's fruit snack, mixed fruit, blah, 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 0.9 ounce, then the stars, and then 698. And why we set that up with an auto layout is, imagine the product name is just a single line, right? We want everything to bump upwards. And why it's really helpful is then it gives our components a lot more flexibility versus before, when we set up components, right, the stars wouldn't be able to move, right? It would be set up in one spot and then we'd be like, okay, let's just fake it and just like fill in like extra dummy copy. But this is a great way that we can really create these scalable pieces of a design that allows us to create consistent style, but also give us flexibility to be able to change it up and make it more real world applicable. Yeah. So that was kind of just like the definition, high level. Anyone have any questions? No? Pretty self-explanatory? Okay, cool. And then
There's a chat question.
Okay, yeah. Okay, sorry. Yeah. I see it now. Are variants like an addition to components, or are they set up as their own? So they are on its own. You don't have to, great question. You don't have to set up a component to use auto layout. You can use auto layout for things that aren't components, just like one-off things. But essentially, it's helping you to group objects together, and you're allowed to adjust the margins in between and set it up to be dynamic, if that makes sense. So just imagine if I have like, what's a good example? You know what? We're going to go into the example in a second just to help us orient. I have a lot more examples. So hopefully that was just good to just like give you a little bit more context. Yeah. But before we start, just wanted to raise a couple red flags. I know, we as designers, we want to make everything so perfect. We want to go off into our little cave, come out of it, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, that was the best design ever, fanfare. Oh my God, like, oh, like the ground is parting, like this was the best design. Like we crave that, right? But I see a lot of nodding. I see you. But at the end of the day, right, we have so many constraints with our time, right? We have constraints of team sizes, dynamics. We have constraints with how many hours, minutes we have in the day. And at the end of the day, imagine just these are all tools we have to help us to get to the end goal, right? And if we're iterating really quickly on a design, for example, and we just have to just riff off on something and just get something on paper or on the computer as a sketch, some of these tools might not be the best, right? Just imagine like if you're sketching a blueprint of a house, I'm not going to start creating a 3D model of a toilet, right? With real porcelain. We're like, okay, this is just to like test it out. But, it's like a year later, we're like, we already did the makeover, home makeover. And so I think, some of these things just to think about. The first one is, sure, it definitely speeds up workflow, but there's a lot of work that's needed to set it up in the upfront, right? Identifying what we want to use these things for, but just like the con of it is we can get so stuck in the weeds with trying to make everything component, you know? And along with that, establishing consistency, right? It's great. We put restrictions on ourselves so that we can't have crazy font sizing, right? From button to button, or the colors aren't, you know, changing by like just a couple RGB values each time. There's consistency to it, which is great, especially for developers. But with that, as we think about innovation and creating websites that, you know, we haven't created before, even just like templates, it can sometimes just bog us down when we think too much about the system, right? So it's really this balance of, okay, how much time do I want to spend doing exploration and just break things apart, you know, and then allowing us to say, okay, but in the next like few hours of the project, then I'm going to clean it up, right? And then the last part is structure. You can definitely organize objects really neatly. It's a perfect grid. It's like, oh my God, pristine. Oh, fanfare again. Like, that was perfect. But it's so easy to fall into the grid trap, right? Then our website turns into Amazon. It's just literally, it's a grid, like left, right, up and down. And when you think about just like why we even want to come into design as a career, right? It's just to be creative. It's to, you know, think outside the box and try things that we haven't tried before. And I think it goes both ways, right? We want to create a system that works really well, is very buttoned up, but at the end of the day, you know, how much do we want to give ourselves the forgiveness and the room to explore so that we can try things that haven't been tried before? Yeah, cool. So with that, we'll quickly go into just walking through how I usually like to teach this is first just being able to spot it, right? I think it's really easy to be able to build this. There's so many YouTube tutorials about it, which I highly recommend you to check out, you know, but I think it starts with just how can we spot it in the very beginning? If we can't even spot it, then we can't really build into it, right? So usually for myself, how I like to do things is I just like to just put things on design, right? So just put wireframes, like don't think about the components too much yet because that's not what the iteration portion is. But now let's say you have, you know, wireframes are good or designs are in a good place. How do I make it a system, right? So let's first start off with components. Where are the components of this page, right? So this is the Airbnb homepage, landing page. The question that you should ask yourself first is, okay, what are some things that repeat on this page, right? Things that, you know, you see 2, 3, 4 of, right? Obviously, those are things that you're going to create components for. And then the other question to ask is, what are things that repeat on other pages, right? Just because you have it happen once here doesn't mean that, you know, we just want to do it one time every other page, right? And so I get to use the really cool animations of Keynote that we never use. But here's just examples of things that repeat on this page, right? Obviously, you know, these city recommendations, home recommendations, experience recommendation, these tiles repeat, right? Just the image changes, the text is exactly the same. But what about the things that repeat on other pages, right? So we take a look at the COVID response banner, the navigation banner, and even the search banner. Potentially that could be reused and repurposed on other sections, right? This is going to be a great way where we're like, okay, like how do we take a look at this, right? And then even as we think about like holistically, like boom, like nested components, right? Components and components, like what is that? Maybe even this is reused, right? Or maybe even this module is reused, or maybe even just this whole entire module is reused. And when we create nested components, it ensures that whatever we put on different pages or different sections of the website or whatever app we're designing, that we are very consistent and very methodical with what we put together. Yeah. Any questions on this page before I go to the next one? Pretty streamlined. Yeah. Okay, and then you're gonna have to do this next, so be prepared. Okay, so the next one is variants, right? So we just talked about components, just reusable stuff, right? Really easy. Variants is stuff that comes in different flavors, right? So think about, okay, if I were to use it, would I swap it out for something? It's a little hard to point out here, but for the first one, right, like buttons, like they're always going to be variants of it, right? We have black ones, white ones, inverted ones, colored ones, um, big ones, small ones, you know, um, queer ones, cis ones, you know. um, and then one thing that maybe we didn't spot was these. You know, these are different form fields, right? That are at the beginning, are at the end. And these could also be variants. And essentially what we've built here was just 4 different form fields, right? And we have one variant for a form field that is initiating, and then one form field at the end that's terminating, right? And then we have the form field inside of it, right? Does this kind of make sense? Is this starting to make sense now? And this is how we can then now say, okay, swap these out where we want it, right? We've created a form field, but then now they have these flavors, right? Okay. I kind of just want to get through this and push you into the hands-on section of this lecture so that you can get more hands-on training. And then the last one is just the auto layout. So these are just elements that repeat, right? Really easy. And then the other one is what higher order blocks of modules can stack or collapse. That doesn't necessarily have to repeat. And this means it's just if it wasn't there and you want things to push up, that is something that you can make into an auto layout. Yeah. So first of all, what elements repeat, right? You're like, oh, Steven, of course, it's like this one, right? Oh, those pictures repeat and it's repeating that, right? What about this one? Of course, we have 2 more, right? And then we also have the last one. I mean, the little pictures I totally forgot, but when we talk about this higher order blocks of modules that can stack or collapse, it is these modules, right? And I also missed the middle for some reason. Maybe I just deleted it by accident. Who knows? But essentially what we're saying is, okay, we have a template, right? That's like stacked on top, essentially, right? And if we set all of this entire page into an auto layout, what we can do is, let's say this live anywhere module were to be taken out. We deleted it, right, from our list. The experience the world would automatically push up, right? So you're starting to get now this auto layout feature, how it can be really flexible and useful. Whenever we want to have things shift up in the absence of another layer, just to take its spot, then that's a moment you use auto layout. And it could either go horizontally or vertically. Yeah, horizontally or vertically. Yeah, cool. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, so let's get into it. Let me share this out. And this is going to be the Figma doc for today. Boom, boom, boom. Let's get into it. Hold on real quick. Where's my Figma? Okay. So open it up. You should have this. Yes, awesome. Okay. So what I would love everyone to do is, let me just delete that. And take a look at my screen first for anyone that's new. So this is Figma. The first thing we want to do is we just want to create pages for ourselves, right? So I have a page right here. I want everyone to right click it and just duplicate this page, right? Just duplicate it and then just Stephen. And just write your name on it. So now everyone has a copy of it. And let me just rename this to do not rename or do not use. Yeah. So everyone should have a page of your own right now. Yeah.
I think we only have view
Oh
permissions right now.
no. Okay, one sec. Okay, everyone can edit. There you go. Boom. So just right click the do not rename and then click duplicate page. And then it'll say do not rename whatever. That's a bad name, but main one. Okay. And then just add your name. So this will be Steven too. Yeah. So everyone has a separate page to work on. Yeah. Awesome.
I think it's still view only, Steven.
Is it? What the
Oh, if you do the anyone with the link can edit right under. Yeah,
Ah, got it. Okay. Apologies. Thanks, Kenny.
there we go.
There we go. I should have done the survey. Like, do you know how to do the share setting? What's that? What's that? Awesome. Cool. And just we'll give everyone a second to just put your name there. If you want to use an emoji, sure. You know. Awesome. So the main one, that's going to be the golden, untouchable one. So if you ever really mess up, just duplicate it again. Awesome. I'm a huge proponent of making mistakes and breaking things, so don't even sweat it. If somebody absolutely demolishes it, we can always go back in time. There's version control, so don't even worry. Don't even worry. Don't be so precious. Awesome. Okay, I'll give everyone one more minute to set it up. Cool. Okay. Awesome. And for anyone, the easiest way is just duplicate the page. Right click on the page and just duplicate. Yeah. And that should duplicate every single thing that's on the page for you. Yep. Cool. Awesome. Cool. And for anyone who's already done, I will start to do the introduction. So we're going to do activity 1 first, right? And this one is essentially the exercise that we had done before is training our eyes to be able to spot these things first before we build it, right? So there are 3 activities here. Basically, we have each block that's provided for you. You know what I should have done? I should have given you the snapshot of this. Okay, here you go. So I'm going to put this on a page on the main one. Go. Slides. So I'm going to put it here. So if anyone needs to see it, you can copy and paste that on your page for reference. But that's essentially the definition of what it is. So going back to here, what I would love everyone to do is to, I can't edit it. Okay, so all you do is just grab the block and then just change the opacity, right? You could use any color you want. It doesn't have to be blue. It could be rainbow, you know, black, white, whatever. And change the opacity, right? To change it really quickly, all you have to do is create the block and just hit the number. So if I want 50%, all I hit is 5, and it turns it to 50% opacity. And so just do the exercise, go down the page, and you don't have to catch every one of them, right? Just highlight the ones that you think are going to be components. I'm going to give everyone a few minutes to do each one, and then I'll go in and just have my take at it so you can see where I spot some components. Yeah. So go in, take a look, highlight some of the areas. Yeah. job. Perfect. Look at that. Outro. Okay, cool. So everyone feel good? Feel good? You highlighted a couple. You're starting to understand kind of where you can spot some of these things. Yeah. I'll quickly go through kind of just like my version of like things I could spot. So taking a look at components, some things that I can spot, right? First one, easily, right? Repeatable elements, like easy. Yeah, this is definitely component, right? Another item, obviously, navigation, right? We reuse this on multiple different pages, right? And so we'd want to make it once and not have to do it again. Even if we want to go more specific, if anyone did this, these individual things inside are components themselves too. Yeah, you could set it up like that too. Yeah. Let's see, as we go down the page, right? Here's another component. I'm not going to do all of them, but hopefully this helps you understand. This would be a component. This thing would be a multi-nested component. So I'm going to show you kind of just like the little components that make it what it is. So this one is a component. This one could be its individual component. You can do the picture as a component. You could do just a batch of text as a component, or you could do it all together, right? This image is one component on its own, and then you can have one main component as a whole, yeah? So it's a nested, 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 like a bunch of different components, yeah? Because we can see, right, these user photos are used elsewhere too, right? The same structure, right? We use this. Cool. And then I'll just do one more. How I would do this one is, right? Each of these are components, right? Photo, right? All of these like user photos, etc. Right? Everyone get it? Yeah? Good. Steven, we got it. Okay, got it. So variants, this one's gonna get a little tricky, right? You ready? So these are any instances when we would want to swap something, right? Just taking a look at the page, like what pops up to me, I think the easiest one are, on and off states, right? When there's toggles. So the easiest one for me that I could spot right away is this is a good opportunity for a variant, right? On or off states. So these, right? These are like the off states and they have like a white background on it essentially, right? But you don't see it because it blends in. But sometimes when people build it, right, they have these on and off states that you could toggle on and off. And why variance is really useful here is you could say, hey, turn this on or turn it off, right? Get it? Another one could be going down the page. Oh, there's so many, but like buttons, first of all. I'm trying to think if there's anyone that's like a little funky. I could see this as a variant. This is like a different style even, right? We have one consistent form field, right? That was like up here, right? And then maybe that's like a variant of our form field. So you have like flavor B of all the form field, right? Remember we talked about you can have buttons in different colors. You can have them in different styles as well. And then maybe they're all tied together as like a component library, yeah? Another one I spot could be even like zooming out. Okay, I could even do this, right? This was like kind of like cray land. This like image with this state could even be a variant, right? You create an object that has slot on top, right? So it's saying, hey, you can either do an image with this like counter on top, or you can do just the image by itself, right? Or you do the image with the text, right? So this is almost like a CTA is a button, but this is essentially like these modules, right, that we're creating that has variance. So we can do higher order level variants, essentially, blocks that you can swap in and out, right? Some have images, some have text, right? Starting to get it, how we can use these things? Cool. And then the last one, I think this one is pretty easy. Anytime you see things repeating, right? Obviously, like this one, as you repeat, right? This one would be auto layout. I think hopefully everyone got the mega auto layout, right? So if I auto layout the whole website, right? Maybe it could stack like that. And then I delete it, it'll just push everything upwards, right? Another opportunity we can use auto layout is within each block, I can auto layout this with this, right? So I'll just delete that. And then this is the auto layout of that. So essentially I can even have an auto layout in an auto layout, right? So I can do that. And then basically, then I group this together and then I auto layout these two things together. Yeah. So what that means is if I delete this, sorry, if I delete this one, then the stuff will push upwards and then I'll get the latest and then today's reward, right? Does that make sense? This starting to make sense? Yes? Did I lose anyone? Good? Bad? Okay. So then now we're going to get to creating it. You're like, we got it. Well, I'm not usually this fast, so it takes me time to like figure out like how do you do this? Okay, so what we have for our second activity is practice making it. So I'm gonna make it with us together as a group, just like one at a time, right? So the first one is just gonna be component, yeah? So components are things that we want to reuse, right? We have an eye, we can spot these instantly, like, okay, we totally get it, right? Navigation, right? So I just put the extra ones here in case you just want to work on the one that says like, sorry, I shouldn't say bonus round, but play with this one. And if you mess up, then you have these other ones that you could lean back on. Yeah, cool. So to make a component is really easy. You just select it. And all you do is you go here to these like 4 little squares and you click create component. That's it. Scam. I'm gonna undo it. You can also do, because you know Stephen likes keyboard commands, on the Mac, it's Option Command K. Option Command K. And that creates a component. Imagine it starts with a K. Component, right? And this is really useful because while you're just creating stuff, if you're grouping stuff, yeah, exactly. You got it, Liz. It creates a component. And what's really cool about this feature is, right, I'm going to undo the mobile nav real quick. If something isn't grouped together, right, so let's say I have these like 3 objects. If I select all of them and I did Option Command K, it automatically groups them together and it makes them a component. Yeah. And these are things I want to be able to reuse. Yeah. And for anyone that's coming from Sketch, Sketch, you had to have the components on a separate page, right? But Figma is really different in the sense that you don't have to have symbols on a separate page. Components, symbols, same thing. You can have the symbols on the page you're editing. And why this is great is because we don't have to have like all the navs and all the buttons like elsewhere. We can have it in the page itself and we just edit that, right? So essentially what happens is if I create one component, this becomes the main one. And I could tell if I look in the left pane here, it has the filled in for kind of the little squares, the rectangles, yeah? And that means that's the main one. And then if I duplicate it, right? And then, so this is a trick I taught in the last session, which is to just duplicate the object. You can either just like click here and right click and just click, oh, there's no duplicate, sorry. Like copy, paste. Whenever you click a main component and you duplicate that, all the duplicates would be children of it automatically, right? You can tell when we click into these and we see on the left, you know, it's a rectangle. It's not the 4 little squares. That means that's the baby. It's like the little, you know, the army. Yep. Command D, exactly, with a K. You got it. Duplicate it. The skill that I like is I hold Option and Shift and I drag things out, and that duplicates things, but also the Shift allows it to duplicate horizontally or vertically crazy. Yeah. These keywords on point. Uh, going down, basically, sorry, just to back up. Awesome. Thank you, Liz. This allows me to create multiple little children without having to constantly do like Apple D, duplicate, and then drag it into place. Yeah. Cool. So again, the keyboard command is Option, hold it down, and then Shift. When you hold it down, it either duplicates and you go directly to the side or directly below. Yeah. So now if I made a symbol or component, now I can make multiple ones really quickly. Yeah, cool. Everyone got it? Okay, cool. And then now we can tell which one is the real one, which one's the imposter, right? These are all imposters, and this is a real one. What's really cool is, let's go into the main one, right? I just double click into it to go into the group. That's how you go one level deeper. And let's say I move this down, right? Now, do you see how, whoopsies. Do you see how when I did that, all of them updated, right? And why when I take it too far, it's like disappearing? Because look, I pulled it out of the canvas and now it's like, hey, you're not in this group anymore, right? So you have to be aware of the frame of the component that you created and make sure everything that's in there. And how it knows to pull it out is when the mouse passes the threshold of the barrier of your frame is when it pulls it out of the group. It's not when the edge of the object leaves, it's when the mouse exits the frame. Yeah? Cool? Everyone get it? Okay, cool. So, quick activity, everyone just take 2 minutes, just make some components, go for it. Play with it, do the keyboard command, make some in the navigation, make some here, and then we'll go into creating more items. Yeah? I'll give like 1-2 minutes. Whatever you want to make components out of. You can make it with an image, you can make it with, you know.
Hey, Steven.
Yeah, what's up?
What was that trick you gave us last time to have the bar at the bottom with all the keyboard shortcuts? Do you remember what I'm
This
talking
one. Question mark.
Ah, yes.
Yes. This one right here. Yeah, you got it.
Thank you.
So for anyone that's new, yeah. This is a great way to just learn keyboard commands and shortcuts so that you don't have to constantly use a menu. And then what's really great is if you've used it, it'll be in blue, the commands. And if you haven't used it, it'll be in this non-blue. Yeah.
How did you get that?
It's on the very corner right here. It's kind of hidden. Very right-hand bottom corner. It says help and resources. When I click it, and then I click keyboard shortcuts, it goes boom. Boom. Cool. Yeah. Okay. Everyone good? Pretty easy stuff. Okay, it's gonna get a little bit more complex. So we made the components, right? I'm just gonna undo, clean up some of this stuff. Now we're going to make some variants. Okay, so, okay. Let's just do the buttons. That's the easiest way to start first, right? So follow us on the gram. Let's just make this, right, into first a component. I did not set it up properly, apologies. But if you select that, make it a component, right? Option Command K, I made it a component, right? And next, I'm gonna see on the right pane, it says variants. That option popped up, right? So variants have to be from components. You cannot create a variant if it's not a component, right? So if you don't see it, you haven't made it a component, right? When you click variants, click plus, you'll see all these properties that pop up, right? And then you'll see it duplicated it, like, oh my God, you just like little insects, you just like multiplied. And this is to show you, okay, what other flavor now do you want, right? And it's saying, okay, let's just make a different flavor. And what we can do is let's just create a different style first, right? Don't worry about on the right yet. We'll do that next. My recommendation is just create the second flavor first, right? So let's say this one, I just want to make a button that's like that, right? And then one with an image, right? So I have two flavors. And then I could wait for everyone to do it if you're doing it with me. Yeah. Yeah. Dun, 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 dun. Cool. Okay. So you have two different flavors. Yeah. Yes, no, thumbs up. Yeah. Okay. Now we go to the right, right? And what we can do is, so it gets really crazy. I don't want to get like too in the weeds, but essentially when we have components, we could create little toggles, little switches that say, hey, like, tell me which flavor you want, right? You can make a toggle that says color, right? And you could pick from a bunch of colors, right? You could say a toggle that's like with image, without image, right? There's so many different ways you can slice and dice it. But essentially the right, where it says property, these are the controls that you want to put, right? So when I took image out, essentially I want to create a toggle that says button with or without image, right? Follow me? Cool. Here we go. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna double click on one of the components that you created, right? You're gonna go here, and then you're gonna double click the name, and then all of a sudden you're gonna be like, oh my God, what the heck is this? It turned into property one equals default. And this is asking you, hey, tell us what is different between the two, right? So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create the controls to be able to toggle on and off between these, right? So the easiest one is just change property one, right, to image, because that's what's different, right? And then the one I have is image on, right? And then the second one, I'm going to say image equals off, right? Do you follow? Okay, I see a lot of furrowed eyebrows. Okay. Okay, so select. Okay, so essentially, let's see. What we're trying to do is we're trying to create a toggle that allows us to pick and choose the different properties, okay? Okay, you know what? You know what's gonna help? I'm gonna do this. We're gonna go here, right? So we're in the component, right? We're not in the variants, right? We're in the interface, right? So when I click on this, right? On the right, do you see here's a toggle where it says image, right? Where it says image on or off. Do you see that? So basically the naming of the objects is to create the toggles that's going to show up on the right side to let you control what type of objects you want to create. Did that make sense? Yeah? Okay. So essentially what we're trying to do now is we're creating all the switchboards. Again, like this is why it gets like super hairy, because we can create any type of way delineation. We can say, hey, pick the color, pick on or off, right? It can be so many things. But if we want this switch, basically we use the words on or off. Yeah? Cool. Yeah. So essentially, when we go back here, the way we name things turns into our controls. Yeah? I'm gonna pause. Did that make sense for everyone? Yes? No? Maybe so? How about this? On the flip side, I could say image equals yeah, and image equals no, right? And if I click it, if I click into what's the object, now I have a drop down. I can pick. Did that make sense? Now I have a, okay? So all we're doing with the naming structure is we're creating the controls, right? And so I won't get too in the details, but essentially when you have more variations, you can add more attributes with a semicolon, and you keep adding different attributes. And the advice is make sure the structure and the naming is the same across all your different variants. So you can jump back and forth between each one. Yeah? Cool. Yeah, everyone?
Sorry, Stephen, I
Until
have a question.
yes, go for it.
When you just made the third flavor, like how did you do that? And how did it pop out in the side menu?
Yep, for sure. So here we see the dotted lines, right? So the dotted lines indicates these are objects that we can swap things for, right? The controls that we create will pick from this little fence, right? And what I just did was I just Command D, I just duplicated it. That's it. Yeah. So it's going to make, it's not going to make children when it's in the fenced area. It's going to make everyone into parent level components by default. Nobody can be its own child or else it becomes way too complex. So whatever is in the fence is going to be a separate flavor of its own. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha, yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Cool. Okay. Anyone have any other questions? Is this making sense? Just trying to like demystify this like really weird, this really weird feature. But essentially what we can do now is, right, we can make all the different flavors, but it also helps to teach us, right? We have to now make all the different flavors that are for each, variant. So let's say we wanted to make like inverted version, right? So we want to make this, let's see, I want to make this, right? Why isn't that working? There we go. Oh no, the image disappeared. Hypothetically, right? Let's just say now we're doing the inverted versions. Basically now what we do is we just add more to the naming structure. We add more to add more controls to be able to pick those, right? So we'll do semicolon, invert, or it's like, sorry, I'll do background, right? Equals, background equals white. So I'll just add that now to the attributes of the components with white backgrounds.
Stephen, I think it's comma, right? Instead of semicolon.
Is it comma?
I think it is.
Yeah. Is it? Let me see. Yeah, it is. You're right. You're right. Thank you. See, I should have just clicked. I have no idea what I'm doing. I ask myself that each day. Cool. So when you're in here, basically now, right? Now I'm going to do the same one. Image equals yeah. Now see, right? This is where it gets a little tricky is if we're not consistent with the naming structure, it makes our controls kind of a little cuckoo crazy, yeah? But essentially now we just do like one, let's just do like background black, right? When I'm on the object, right? See, now we just added more controls to it on the right, right? Now I could change it to black. You see it? And because I didn't add a image in the name for the black background one, it like slashes it out. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Helpful? Yes, no, maybe so. I see Liz kind of just like I can't tell if everyone's focused or everyone's like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Cool.
I'm like 80% there, but
Okay, got it.
I'm still, research.
Okay, awesome. Cool.
Steve,
Yeah, what's up?
could you type the commands or the text you inputted when you renamed the layers? Could you type it on like text onto the Figma file so that I can like refer back to it?
Yeah. Does somebody want to help me do that? I'm limited with my screen real estate. So the one I'm doing is Apple plus D. This one is.
Oh no, I don't mean the keystrokes, but like
So-
for example, image equals.
Okay, got it.
That stuff, yeah.
Yeah. If you actually want, you can actually go into the main one and literally just copy what I'm doing. Just copy and just paste it
Yeah.
in your. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's a lot more efficient. All right, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Steal it from me. Take my children. Okay, good. Is really helpful, or at least entertaining, one or the other. Okay, cool. Oh no, someone deleted it. Okay. We can always undo, don't even worry. Someone deletes the whole doc. We'll start over from scratch. Okay, awesome. Cool. So I'm going to leave it at that. Explore, again, it's just my recommendation is just play with it, just play with it. Play with, other objects. And I'm gonna move just for the sake of time into auto layout. But my recommendation is play with it, make things into variants, go cuckoo, and then realize, okay, this is a little too much. Yeah. Okay, cool. But in a nutshell, remember, variants are things that you would want to swap out with one another. Yeah. In a nutshell. Okay. Cool. Let's get into auto layout. Oh no, the canvas is gone. No worries, we have a duplicate. Okay. Look at that. Okay, so auto layout, super easy, right? Auto layout means I just want to repeat something. So what's hard about auto layout is if you've already designed it with all the modules, it won't be able to go and auto layout all of them. It can only do with 2. If you select more than 2 things to auto layout, then it won't. So in a nutshell, I'm going to start with just like really simple blocks, right? So what it requires are 1 or 2. You can have 1 or 2, I think. Let me see. You do need 2. So you need 2 objects, and then this option comes out from the right that says auto layout. When I click plus, it groups it into a repeating sequence now, yeah? And now when I Apple D duplicate, it automatically duplicates in the group. Yeah? Easy? Yeah, go for it. Copy away. And then if I do the same, 2 objects, but then I go vertical, right? Let's do the same thing. And I go on the right, this right arrow pointing to the right, it will auto layout horizontally now. Yeah. And then so now when I duplicate it, it will continue like that. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah. Got it? Cool. And then just to talk through the controls, this is a spacing between the object, the first element after the arrows. And like I said, this is really helpful for multiple objects is because we can now control them all at once. We don't have to go in and resize and change the margin. And what's helpful is make sure you match the margins between the first and second object together, and that will inherit the value in between in the auto layout automatically. Yeah. So if you want 10, yeah, isn't this crazy? Yeah. So if you wanted 10, right? Let's try it again. And I just wanted 10 in between, and I want all of them 10. Set it as 10 first in between, then click auto layout. And then now it inherited 10 for you, yeah? Sorry, you click the group. Yeah, cool. The next one, the next value is padding around the items. So that's the space around the group, the entire group as a whole, right? So if I add it, then it just adds more padding. It's hard to see, but let me see. Let me add a fill. There we go. So, and how I'm doing this, I'm just clicking the icon and I'm just dragging it left and right. So this is a great way to just like change the values without really having to think if you're just like looking at it. But this is giving you the values around all of the objects together, yeah? Cool, okay. And then lastly, this icon right here, this looks kind of crazy. It's like a spaceship control, but this is just saying, hey, if you had objects different sized, it's not the same size. It doesn't have to be, right? If you have objects different size, what should we do with it, right? So I'm gonna go back here and let's change the sizes of these, right? Yeah, like that, change the height, yeah. Remember, we can put anything in an auto layout together, right? It doesn't have to be the same object. It could be, it just needs to be two objects selected, yeah? So if I click into this, and this is auto layouted, if I click into this alignment and padding, now I can control where it aligns all of them together, right? Think about like a Word doc or whatever, it's like aligning the text. If I select center, it center aligns everything. If I select right, it right aligns everything. And this is really helpful when we're starting to think through like page level auto layout or auto layout things of, you know, weird sizing and things are dynamic. Yeah? Cool. Okay. The horizontal ones don't work for vertical, vice versa, because they can't really shift vertically. Yeah. Make sense? Yes? Helpful? Okay. So for me, or for everyone, I'll give everyone a few minutes, but essentially make these objects, right? So first of all, let's make an auto layout of this one instance, right? So what you would do is, remember, it doesn't have to be the same object, yeah? They could be all different objects. So you can select multiple items. So here I selected 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I select now auto layout, right? And now you can't tell, but watch this. Boop. Whoa. And now we've put them together and they're in relationship with one another, right? Did that make sense? So you can select any objects you want that just wants to be grouped together. And then now they, yeah? Cool. Okay. And why we do this is because we want to auto layout even more past it, right? Nested auto layouts are really helpful. And then for this too, right? Let's imagine like posted under, we removed it. We want trends to shift. Whenever we want things to shift in the absence of something, auto layout. So then I just select 2 things, right? 1, 2, and then I just auto layout that, right? But then this posted under shifted up, and then this is where we just use the, you know, this like margin control thing, this crazy contraption. Cool. And then now watch this. I delete posted under, boom, trend shifted over to the left. Yeah? Cool, everyone following? Okay, cool. So I'm gonna give everyone like 1 minute. We're like running real over. Yeah, no problem. we're still planned to go until 9, so we have a good 25 minutes with everyone. So, but I just wanted to make sure we had like a hangout session afterwards, but maybe that'll be a little bit shorter. Right, Kenny? Yeah, okay, cool. I know, we want to level up everyone's capabilities with Figma. So this is just a really good way to, as we start building like crazy contraptions, right? Like, remember this like Welch's fruit snack? It's like delicious on the outside, but very complex on the inside, you know? And so like this one, like we want to auto layout like this, right? Like imagine if these are blocks, right? Like this is how I would do it in my head, you know? Right? Starting to make sense, right? Like these are 2 blocks, right? So now everything is like little pieces, right? Like that. And then let's just, you know, remember we could select a whole bunch of different ones that we want to be in relation with each other, right? So these 2, let's make sure we group it first. But auto layout essentially creates relationships of objects with each other. So why is it not showing up? Oh, it has to be a frame, that's why. Is that it? Yeah, got it. So you have to make sure it's not a group that you're selecting, that it's a frame. So it can be individual objects or frames, yeah? So if I select all this, and I go auto layout, wait, where's the auto? It's not working. For some reason, it is not liking me. Doesn't like this big image for some reason. Maybe that's a max? Could be. I don't know. It shouldn't be. I don't know why it's not working. But anyway, so now do you see we've created a relationship with everyone. If I delete one, it shifts everything up. Yeah? Cool. So now make this into an auto layout and play with it, delete things, see if it works in relationship with one another. Yeah? And what's really cool is once it's an auto layout, if we change the copy, right, and then we move it down, it automatically updates, right? So we'll have to make sure it's like dynamic first. So look, now if I just like type in more, it pushes everything down. Yeah. You could do that, Ivan. You can also do master components too. It's kind of crazy, right? So here, I'm master component. Actually, no. Can you not do, you can't do, yeah. You can do master, but you can't, like maybe you're saying like nested components. Whenever you nest components, the master can't be in the nest. The master has to, you can't, yeah. But you can have masters as long as there's no symbols under it, yeah? Does this help? Okay. And where I typically use this is any like really complex module that repeats over and over and over, especially with like, yeah, you're right. Like e-commerce, right? Like Amazon, for example, like the tiles, I would auto lay out the whole thing. And what's really good to remember is if you do need things to have a fixed height, all you have to do is just change the canvas for the auto layout object to be a set height, and that's it. But by default, it's going to be dynamic and it'll shift things. Yeah. Okay. And then for the last lesson, unfortunately, we're going to delete all of you all. And then we're just going to take the first one. We're going to make it into a component. This popped out only because we were testing out the components, but this is a component now, right? And we have auto layout set up. And now let's just duplicate it, right? we're creating a website. Yeah, this thing repeats over and over, you know. All you need is 2, and then auto layout this as well, right? Yeah. You see what's happening? And this is the last lesson for the day. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hand, shout, yell, shout. And now look, as we zoom out and we select something inside of it and we delete, everything reacts together. Yeah. Cool. So give everyone a couple minutes to play with that, and I could answer some additional questions in the meantime. Yeah. Everyone follow? Was this helpful? Yes, no, maybe so, maybe, yeah, maybe. Or you just never use components. They'll never know. They'll never know. They'll never know. They'll know. They'll know. No one's gonna know. Nobody's gonna know. Just do the whole page as a symbol. But sometimes I do that too. I have like really advanced, intricate like templates that have like masters and children. Like, yeah, totally. Yeah. Play around with it. You can even like, yeah, make like page level symbols, components, sorry. And when you do like different, you know, flavors of it, they'll influence one another. Yeah. Yeah. And this is all recorded too. So everyone has access to this. You can go through it, listen to me. Cool. So yeah, feel free to play around. That was the lesson for today. Variants. And then we talked about like responsive design. Definitely don't have time, and we can maybe do it in another session. But another tidbit I will give you is the really cool thing about components is that we can also add a grid to them. Watch this. So if I click into a component, where is it? Layout grid. So this is if I want to add a like a grid in the object itself, right? And sometimes what I like to do is I do these like column setting, and I do, essentially I'm setting a grid in the button, right? And then, let's see, margin 20, right? So, you know, sometimes we resize things like, oh yeah, like I want different sizes, but you want the margins, or at least be able to see what you're doing. So essentially what I did was I created a component and I added a layout grid to it. And what's really cool about this is anytime this exists, right, in like whatever designs, now it will always have the margins. I didn't set the properties of the component properly, but now whenever I resize things, it's always going to carry with me all the settings. And I forgot to mention the constraints. This like weird thing with the block is just a way to instruct when an object is resized, a component, how do you want the elements to react and align? Do you want it to stay sticky in the center? Do you want it to stay in the corner? Or do you want it to stay, you know, the same exact size? So this, I would say, just play with the settings and then you'll see, you know. And how I like to do it is I usually test things by, okay, let's see if this breaks. And I will literally do iterations where I'll do this, like weird shapes like that, right? And then what's really cool is now I go into the master, then I change the settings here in the constraints. And that allows me to see how my constraints are being followed. Yeah, I'm gonna do it again, right? We have mama element here, and we make baby element, right? And then my kind of tip is just like make them like weird shapes. You can delete them later, but this allows us to get the constraint properties correct that we want, right? And now we select, let's see, this Instagram picture, right? And we don't want this like circle to be like distorting. Then what we do is, first of all, we want aligned, right? And we see it works in some, but it doesn't work in some. So that means we just have to keep like playing with it. So it looks like the height is also distorting. So let's do the height sticky to the center, right? Boom. This follow us on the gram. We want it centered, right? So see, this is a great way to just like play with these settings. And then when you're done, you just delete it, right? And then you have all the constraints set properly. Yeah, cool. Wow, this is a mouthful. Oh my gosh, Stephen, what do we do with this information? Helpful? Yeah. Dangerous. Or just not use it. Some days I'm like so lazy. I'm just like, I don't want to deal with this. Just push it around. Like it doesn't align. I'm like, it's just one of those days, you know? Just like send it off. But you know, some days when I really have the time, I like to go in and just like perfect these things like this. Yeah, we can't all be perfect. Cool. Awesome. Any questions, thoughts? Everyone's been pretty quiet today. Yeah,
The variance.
Yeah.
The
What's
variance messed me up. Like,
Oh, okay.
I think as soon as we got to that, I kind of got stuck. I figured it out as soon as I went on my own, though, to like try
Okay.
and do it myself. I feel like I learned it a little bit.
Yeah.
But then when you did the background equals black or whatever, I was like, wait, why? Like, what did that do and why? My brain couldn't comprehend why that was happening and for what reason. So then I was like, I don't know what's going on.
Is there an easier way you can? Now you figured it out. Is there a way that you can explain it? Explain like I'm 5.
I can explain like how you made the group or whatever there. Like I basically took the element, the follow the gram button out and then made it a component and then I think made a copy of it and then clicked like the variant plus button. I don't know. But after that, the point where you were like adding the background equals something, like it was another property, I think.
Yeah.
But why would you need another property? Like what is that usually for? If you know.
It's for you to be able to bounce between the different objects, to be able to pick and choose with essentially it's like it's a really convoluted way. They should have designed it better. Like I think they should have allowed you to actually create the controls rather than like it's all in the naming structure. But essentially what you're using is a name to create all the controls, which is I think that's the part that's like really confusing because it's not one-to-one when the whole interface is very visual. Yeah. And Maria said, for the record, variance pretty clear concept-wise, but Figma started misbehaving as I started renaming elements, at least in my experience. Yeah, it's the naming structure is everything. So it's X equals Y, meaning like, I think that's the part that throws people off is like what do you name it? But you can just say like, you know, X equals A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Like you don't have to like make all these intricate options too. Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah. It's totally for engineers. Yeah. Like it's how they would be thinking about it. Like robots. Yeah.
Hey, Steven.
Also, yeah, what's up?
I don't know if you mentioned this, but does it have to be a component for you to inside the variant bubble, or can you just be like free
By
free
default,
shapes?
it's a component. By default.
But no, but the inside the different variants, do they have to be components?
By default, it makes everything a component. Yeah.
Oh, okay. It automatically.
It automatically
does it.
anything that
Okay.
you make, anything you make in that fence, it makes it into a component. Yeah.
Got it. Cool.
Anyone else mind blown? Yeah.